Greetings, friends! It's your boy, Daniel Dragonstaff, and if you haven't noticed, I abandoned Facebook and Instagram, almost a year ago now, back in April of 2024. And so I wanted to join y'all today for a little chat and talk about why I left Facebook and Instagram. When I first started getting into flow arts and fire dancing, many friends that I had in the scene did end up leaving the flow arts and fire dancing community, whether they stopped going to festivals or stopped spinning props entirely. Sometimes they would talk about why they were putting it aside. Sometimes they would just vanish and I would never hear from them again. So rather than vanishing without anybody knowing why I left Facebook and Instagram, I wanted to jump on here and do a little bit of an explanation. And to really make it make sense, we are going to have to go back to the beginning of why I got into flow arts and fire dancing in the first place. So I'm going to break this video up into 3 chapters. The first is, why was I on Facebook and Instagram to begin with? The second is how the internet lost its charm for me. And the third chapter is my ideal life. And to be real with y'all, this is a little bit of a personal video. I'm gonna be a little bit vulnerable, but that's just to really explain and hopefully make all of this make sense as to why I am no longer on Facebook and Instagram. So to go back to the beginning, why was I on there to begin with? So I created a Facebook page in a very difficult and confusing time in my life, in my early to mid 20s. I basically just finished college and was starting to work at an actual normal job for the first time. And that's a pretty difficult transition if you've gone through that. And I was realizing that I was living a very unhealthy life as far as my diet and exercise and drinking. During this time, I was also going through my first kind of heartbreak as an adult. And I was also experimenting with psychedelics, maybe, allegedly. So all these things combined, It made for a very confusing time in my life, to say the least. And in addition to those things, I was also realizing that I had no art, no hobby, no kind of passion in my life. I grew up playing music, first playing guitar and then playing drums in a few different bands, recording music, playing shows and all that fun stuff. And I let that go as I got more into my adult life and working and stuff, and it was all kind of hitting me now that I was living an unhealthy life, working a job, feeling very alone, and in addition to those things, not having something to kind of dedicate myself to, like a hobby or an art form. I was basically feeling like I had no kind of direction. And so I made a Facebook page for the first time to connect with people, to not feel so alone. And yes, I added family and old high school friends and things like that, but more so I was adding random people on the internet that I did not know already in person, mainly if they were some type of artist, whether it was a musician or a painter or a dancer or a flow artist or a fire dancer. I was kind of learning about a lot of new different kinds of art forms that I wasn't already familiar with. Even things like electronic music and visual arts and aerialists and all these types of things that I didn't really think about as being art forms, or definitely didn't think about them as things that I could potentially do. I wanted to get into painting, so I started painting and was not great at it. It took me a very long time to finish anything, and I was never happy with anything, so I kind of put that off to the side and ended up scrolling past a video one night of somebody spinning dragon staff on Facebook, and that was my introduction to dragon staff, to flow arts, to fire dancing. Yes, I had seen hoopers and jugglers, but this was something different to me, and it introduced me into the world of flow arts and fire dancing. Something about Dragonstaff really piqued my interest. In the midst of realizing that I was not living a very healthy life, I started to clean up my diet and started exercising and doing yoga. And when I saw Dragonstaff, it was kind of like a culmination, I think that's the right word, of everything that was interesting to me throughout my life. I could see yoga poses rooted in Dragonstaff tricks. It's called a dragon staff, and I was always a dork for Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons and anything like that. The prop itself makes you look like a wizard, and that was pretty cool to me. And then to top it all off, you're playing with fire, and you're moving your body. It's an art form. It just seemed like exactly what I was looking for. So from there, I ended up ordering a dragon staff online, got my first dragon staff, and I spun for like a year, 14 months actually, to be precise, before I met any other flow artists or lit the thing on fire for the first time or anything like that. But throughout that year to 14 months, I did start to share Facebook videos of me spinning dragon staff on there. And it was around this time where I started going to fire jams, where I started to have people try to get into contact with me through social media. People from fire jams would try to find me, and one question I always got was, how do you not have an Instagram? Like, what are you doing? And so after hearing that so many times, I finally made an Instagram, again, to connect with people, to now share my art form and everything like that. So that concludes chapter 1, why was I on there in the first place, and it brings us to chapter 2, how the internet lost its charm for me. And hope you don't mind my kitty Indy here making an appearance. I love her very much, and so I'm gonna pet her as long as she's here on my lap. So after years of being on social media and sharing videos and now making tutorials and things like that, the internet started to become a little bit of a different place for me. My social media pages started to become more of a resume for me when applying to festivals to teach and perform. So I started to feel an obligation to post less personal stuff of my family or, my niece or my cats or whatever else, and feeling like I needed to just fill it up with flow content so that if one of these festivals did look at my page, they aren't going to see pictures of my cats first thing, and instead it will be something more to what they're looking for, like a video of me hopefully doing something impressive for them. It was around this time that I started to get a bit more support and recognition on there, which I am very grateful for. But that also came with a lot of responsibility. I started to get more and more messages from people, oftentimes just asking for help with tricks and things, which I love getting those kinds of messages. But I would also get weird messages about what I should be using my platform for, or I shouldn't be posting during this time because it's taking attention away from whatever is going on in society that we should be putting our attention on. I would also get messages from people saying, hey, I seen you make a tutorial for this trick. You should name the tutorial or the trick after me because I came up with the trick. And I'm sitting there thinking, I've done this trick before I ever saw a video of you doing this trick, and I learned it from someone else who was doing it way longer before I ever did it. So to name the trick after you seems kind of odd. We do name tricks after people sometimes in flow arts, but usually have to be pretty dang sure that that person deserves the credit. And yeah, long story short, it just started to get weird, and I started to notice the internet just becoming more and more of a place where people argue, more of a place where you can only have one kind of opinion, and if you voice the other opinion, then you'll be basically blacklisted. Not just on social media, but even in the flow community, whether it's your local community or something like that, you can be kept from getting gigs, teaching or performing because of what you might post or say on social media. So now, in addition to feeling like my Facebook and Instagram were part of a resume for me to apply to festivals with, now it was also feeling like I couldn't say or share my thoughts without it getting me either accepted or banished from a specific community. So it just leads to me, and I'm sure other people, just feeling like they have to be silent on there, and in which case it all just starts to feel like a chore, like I'm on here for basically work now because it's a resume. I'm not on here to share my thoughts or opinions or anything like that that could be taken wrong. And so then you have to start asking yourself, am I even enjoying being on here? Like, why am I actually on here? And then to top it all off, there is AI and things like dead internet theory. If you aren't familiar with it, I do recommend looking into it. I don't know if I can do a good enough job explaining it, but it is something that I believe is happening on the internet, to the point where I can hardly tell what's real and what's fake on social media anymore. AI videos and pictures have gotten so good, I can hardly differentiate. There's bot accounts where people are having fake conversations and fake comments, and it becomes harder and harder to tell which of those conversations and posts are actually authentic or if they're bots. And then I don't know if someone's making a post to try to appease the algorithm and the bots, or if they're just making a post because they're paid by Facebook and they get some cents or dollars on every comment on there, and that's why people say outrageous stuff. I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I basically could just no longer tell what was real and authentic or what was fake, or just going for views or virtue signaling or anything like that anymore. It just all became very muddied to me. So at the point where Facebook and Instagram just start to feel fake and inauthentic and more like a chore than something that I actually want to do, I have to start asking myself, should I be doing this? And that concludes chapter 2 and brings us along to chapter 3. And that is my ideal life, or rather what I would like my ideal life to be. So I don't know if y'all knew this, but I'm 33 now. I'm getting pretty heckin' old, and maybe it's just nostalgia, but to me, the best time, not just in my life, but I felt like in society and politically, of course, there's always problems, there's always been problems, but what seemed like the peak of our existence here in the United States in my lifetime was kind of the late 90s and early 2000s, and I attribute that to a lot of things, but one thing that really stands out to me is that was a time where we had internet and we had cell phones, but we didn't have Wi-Fi and we didn't have smartphones and apps and things like that. So you could hop on your computer and check your MySpace. So there was still social media, and you could hop on your computer and watch YouTube or go to MapQuest and print out your directions. So we still had a lot of the advantages that the internet offered us, but it wasn't in our pocket at all times to where people are in class or at work just scrolling Instagram and Facebook and watching YouTube and all of these things. And I feel like something changed in society when we hit that point. And so I tried to avoid getting a cell phone for as long as I could. In fact, I didn't have one until my early 20s, when I got close to the end of college and was applying for jobs, I would apply to jobs and I would put my house phone number on there, and jobs always had a question or a concern with that, like, how are we going to get a hold of you? And I'm like, what do you mean? You call my house phone. If I'm not there, you leave a message. You don't need to be able to get a hold of me at all times. But eventually, I felt like I was forced by society to get a cell phone. And then when I got my first job, they required us to have a smartphone. So then I had to upgrade from my little Nokia cell phone to an actual smartphone. So I mention all of this to say that these were never necessarily things that I wanted, and more things that I felt like were forced for me to have. I say all of that to say that it was a more simple time. It felt like a happier time generally, and I also felt like people were less stressed and felt more free to speak openly about things. So that is kind of the time that I would like to live in, even though we're in 2025 now. It's my ideal life, and I would like to get to a point where I no longer need to have social media apps, which is why I jumped off of them, and maybe even one day wouldn't even want to have a smartphone anymore. We'll see, hopefully we can get there. But this all brings me to what my ideal life would be. My ideal life is in nature with the people I love, with my cats, with my dragon staff, with my garden, maybe with some video games, with my yoga. These are all things that I see as a part of my ideal life. Not scrolling Facebook and Instagram, taking in a whole bunch of awful opinions. Not everyone's opinion on there is awful, but let's be real, the majority, at least in my opinion. My ideal life does not involve setting up a camera like I am right now to record videos and edit them and post them at the right time so that they get the most traction and most interaction, and make sure that the title and the thumbnail are gonna grab your attention, and make sure I have the right hashtags and description and all these kinds of things. Those are not necessarily part of my ideal life. So back to what this video is all about, why I left Facebook and Instagram. If we go back to the beginning of why I made a Facebook and Instagram, it was to connect with people and then to find inspiration in art, and then to share art and inspiration. And I think I got everything that I was looking for out of it. I now have dragon staff and flow arts and fire dancing, and I don't need social media or a video even to enjoy those things. I can enjoy those things by myself in my backyard on a hike. It doesn't have to involve even flow festivals or social media or anything like that. And the other part of that, getting on social media to connect with people, I made a whole bunch of friends. I met a whole bunch of people. I met my girlfriend actually through Facebook. So I feel like if I'm looking at why I got on Facebook and Instagram as a checklist, I can check all the boxes, because I did connect with people, I did find art, I did share art, and at some point I had to ask myself, why am I still on here making these posts? If I found the love of my life on there, which is, the greatest connection, and I found friends on there, and I found art on there, and those were all the reasons why I made Facebook and Instagram in the first place, then I'm grateful for the platforms for giving me what I was looking for and what I wanted, but at a certain point, they have served their purpose, and I no longer wish to be on them. So in short, I jumped off of Facebook and Instagram because I found everything that I was looking for. And I do wish that I would have left Facebook and Instagram with some kind of post just to let people know I was leaving, to let them know that I'm okay, to let them know that I'm happy. But I also felt like it was just gonna keep that addiction going. If I make that post, then I'm gonna wanna check the comments and reply to people, and I just didn't want to also come off like I'm trying to do something for attention here, because you know that those kinds of posts always get a lot of interaction and things like that too. So there it is. Why did I leave Facebook and Instagram? Because I got everything that I wanted out of them. Thank you all so much if you have watched this far. Thank you all for the support on this journey. It's been almost 7.5 years about of flow arts and fire dancing, and like I said, I got everything that I wanted from Facebook and Instagram, and that is largely because of people like you who are watching these videos and support my content and my art, and for that I cannot thank you enough. Hope you are all well, and I will see you in the next video.